problem with that is we don't live in peace and harmony for a wide variety of reasons. As Christians, we have something the world needs. And I think this is summed up succinctly by Pope John Paul II, who answers these questions, I believe, in a magnificent and very succinct way. He says, human beings, in a certain sense, are unknown to themselves. Think about that. Human beings, in a certain sense, are unknown to themselves. Jesus Christ not only reveals God, but fully reveals man to man. In Christ, God has reconciled the world to Himself. All believers, then, are called to bear witness to this. All believers, you see, are called to bear witness to this fact that God has reconciled the world to Himself. And since he's writing to artists, this quote comes from his letter to artists, written in 1999. He says, "But it is up to you, men and women who have given your lives to art, to declare with all the wealth of your ingenuity that in Christ the world is redeemed." This is a message the world needs to hear. And this is a message the world desperately needs to embrace. It is up to you, men and women, who have given your lives to art. And I would say, too, obviously, he's also referring to all believers when he says that it's your calling to bear witness to this truth. And we do that through the vast avenues, mediums of our modern media and art. To declare with all the wealth of your ingenuity that in Christ, the world is redeemed. The human person is redeemed. The human body is redeemed. And the whole creation, which according to St. Paul, awaits impatiently the revelation of the children of God, is redeemed. The creation awaits the revelation of the children of God also through art and in art. This is your task, he says. Humanity in every age and even today looks to works of art to shed light upon its path and its destiny. And again, as an artist, I focus on art as a form of modern media and communications because it is so crucial in the midst of our culture today that there's been this enormous rift between the church, between Christianity and media and the arts. And we need to begin to bridge that gap. And Pope John Paul II especially was so influential in showing forth the need for bridging that gap and leading the way towards that. Here's the problem as I see it, and the problem that's, I think, obviously been spoken about and expressed through the church. This comes from the president of the Pontifical Council for Culture. I mean, there's a Pontifical Council for Culture. You know, the church is always trying to engage culture, bring it into dialogue with the church and with faith. But here's the problem. From the president of the Pontifical Council for Culture, the drama of the contemporary church is the rupture between faith and culture. The drama of the contemporary church is the rupture between faith and culture. The church is unable to make her voice heard in forums where thought is born and discussed in the world of arts. The paradox emerges of Christians living in a situation of cultural minority in countries of Christian tradition, where even today the number of baptized Catholics and Christians comes close to 90% of the population. Now, did you catch that? Even and he's speaking, he gave this address over in Europe. Okay, he's speaking in Spain, in a country where almost 90% of the population are still baptized Catholic. And he says, yet they are living as a cultural minority in the country, living in a cultural minority, because there is such a division, such a rupture between faith and culture. And he says, will it be possible to live the faith in this postmodern culture? Or will we have to content ourselves with creating protected spaces, ghettos, citadels, where Christian culture can be preserved, abandoning this world to its fate? It's a pretty dire question that he poses there, but I think it's a question that cuts to the heart of the problem. You know, that oftentimes it's becoming increasingly more difficult for the church and Christians to engage the culture with our faith, because in many realms and in many countries, that's becoming even illegal to do so. This false notion of a separation of church and state, where it becomes almost criminal to express your faith even publicly. Okay, so this is the heart of the problem, and of course America is becoming much and much more like Europe in these ways. Okay? But this problem stems from relativism, cultural relativism, moral relativism. And of course our current Pope, Benedict XVI, has dubbed this the dictatorship of relativism. We are living in this age of a dictatorship of relativism. And of course relativism proposes to throw out any objective standards. Throw out any objective standards, especially in the realm of faith and morals. We find this in art as well. Because art, in every age and in every culture, and when I say art, I'm including media as well. Of course, modern means of media and communications are modern to our day and age. So art, if you look at cultures, from the beginning of time until now, if you want to know what any particular culture was like, what their society was like, what their life was like, what their politics was like, you can just look at the art that was developed in that culture. Okay, you can read the plays, read the literature, look at the statues and the paintings. Art in any culture is a window into that culture. It's a mirror of that society. In large part, thanks be to God, art is also a means of, can be a means of renewing culture, changing culture, hopefully for the better. Okay, but we see this, I think, really, mainstream art and media is often emblematic, again, of the society and culture in which it's in. We see this, I think, in some of the crazy, bizarre, abstract arts that has become more popular in modern times. G.K. Chesterton also said that art, like morality, consists of drawing the line somewhere. Art, like morality, consists of drawing the line somewhere. But in our modern day and age, the prevailing mentality is that we don't want the line drawn anywhere. And you find this exemplified in modern art. When you have things passing off as modern art that consist merely of maybe some sprinklings, random sprinklings of paint on a canvas. About around the time I think I was starting Epiphany Studio Productions, I read this article in the newspaper about a piece of art that had recently been purchased at an art auction. And it stemmed from, I think it was in the 1950s, an artist who was a little ahead of his time, went and purchased a urinal, literally a men's urinal, from the local hardware store. This little rectangular thing that typically men would urinate in. He turned it upside down, he wrote something on it, and he submitted it to an art show. And reasonably so, people were more reasonable back then. He was laughed out, and nobody took him seriously, of course. And that what he was trying to pass off as art was lost to history. But just about 7 years ago, there was a replica that was made. A reproduction of the original. It wasn't even the original, a reproduction of the original. Literally, a urinal turned on its end with something written on it. And it sold for well over $1 million at an art auction. You make the connections. Alright, I'll let your imaginations run wild with those metaphors to our culture, okay? But that